Hayom Harat Olam. On this day, the world came into being. We say these words every Rosh Hashanah, Hayom Harat Olam, and how grateful am I to stand here with you this Rosh Hashanah, in this beautiful makom, this sacred space. Hayom Harat Olam, on this day the world came into being. Our tradition tells us that on this day, creation took place. Creation of light and dark, the sky and land and sea, the stars, moon and sun. Creation of animals that fly and swim and walk on land. And finally, the Torah tells us the creation of the human. Over time, as we've come to learn and explore more about our world, we've come to understand so much about these creations, the complexities of the universe, our solar system, the breadth of species in our world, deep in the sea and high in the treetops, complex food chains and animal symbiosis. There will always be more to learn and discover, but we at least have some framework for what exists in our world. We have some understanding of all of this creation, except perhaps one. What does it mean to be human? There is a well-known and well-spread story that the famous anthropologist Margaret Mead once said that the mark of human civilization is finding human remains with a healed femur. The rationale here is that someone broke their leg. They were injured, unable to care for all of their needs on their own, and another being helped them, cared for them, brought them food and bathed them, helped them to heal, and protected them so that they could continue to live. Wounded animals in the wild would not survive. They'd be hunted and eaten by other animals before they were able to rest and restore and fully heal. But the idea is that civilization began when we saw humans care for those unable to survive on their own. Margaret Mead reportedly said, helping someone else through difficulty is where civilization starts. This story of the healed femur has been popularized in many spaces and rose again to prominence at the beginning of the pandemic, when quoted in a Forbes article, as we all wrestled with the collective responsibility to keep one another safe. It's such a powerful, compelling, and comforting concept. Personally, I was all in on it. The problem is, the famous, well-respected, widely published Margaret Mead never said this. There's no evidence that this is a true story. It turns out no anthropologist likely ever authored this famous misquote because it isn't even close to the generally accepted definition of human civilization. It is accurately recorded that Mead was once asked in an interview, when does a culture become a civilization? Her answer was, looking in the past, we've called societies civilizations when they've had great cities, elaborate division of labor, and some form of record keeping. Her response makes a lot of sense. It's logical and rational and practical, but it's not the story we latched onto, shared over and over, that we ingrained into our popular culture. Why did we become so attached to this story? Why did we essentially invent this definition of human civilization? Maybe it's because that's who we want to be. As we search to make meaning of our own identities, whether consciously or not, we try to understand what it means to be human. And we hope that being human is a good thing, that our nature at its core is to be compassionate and empathetic and caring. We want this to be what it means to be human. But is it? What does it actually mean that we have been created as human? We read in the first chapter of the first book of the Torah, Bereshit, Genesis 1, Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzalmo. And God created the human in God's image. Ha'adam, That's us, the human. The term is the most basic descriptor of who we are. Adam, human, from the word Adama, earth, a reference to Genesis 2, the physical formation of the first human from the soil. The Torah says that God formed the human from the dirt of the earth, and then the Hebrew is so beautiful. Vayipach be'apav nishmat chayim. And God blew into the human's nostrils the breath of life. Genesis describes this active creating of the human, the ruler of all animals on earth, from the most basic substance of the physical earth. Dirt, dust, that's all we are. As Genesis continues, there's more mention of the human, this time as gendered, ish and isha, man and woman. But in that first term of creation, we are each an Adam, a human, drawn from the dust of the earth and created b'tselem Elohim in the image of God. From the first moment of our creation, that is all it means to be human. A living being formed from the earth with some kind of unspecified likeness to God. We're not good, not bad, just human. Later, our tradition will layer on more meaning to what it means to be human with our Elohai Neshama prayer. Our morning liturgy says, Elohai Neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you formed it, you breathed it into me. We offer this gratitude to God that fundamental to our existence is our pure soul that has not inherently been weighed down by anything or anyone. We are created with the capacity to do and to be good ingrained into us. So we can add to our definition. Humans are living beings formed from the earth with a likeness to God and a pure soul. And still, that's pretty open-ended and perhaps even a little unfulfilling. In our minds, maybe being human feels like a bigger deal, a higher, more detailed, more evolved category. But academic research on the subject aligns with this fairly minimalist definition of being a human. Biologists and psychologists and anthropologists and sociologists and so many different kinds of ologists have asked this question about what it means to be human. Especially in this moment of time we live in with advances in biotechnology and artificial intelligence, but even science doesn't have a clear answer for us. What does it mean to be created as human? Almost a year and a half ago, my husband Matthew and I welcomed our son Matan into the world. He was so beautiful, so perfect, and so unformed. Here was this newly minted human, a human created in God's image with a pure soul who was sort of terrible at surviving. He couldn't move on his own. He was a terrible conversationalist. He really wasn't so proficient in breathing or eating. Matan, as with all babies, didn't know how to do anything. And yet there he was, a full-fledged human. Now at 16 months old, we often joke that he is just exiting his larval stage. He has lots to say, even if we don't understand it. He's curious, sometimes bordering on nosy. He has opinions and likes to make them clear. He smiles and laughs. He's making friends with his Gan Elohim classmates. A few weeks ago, he started looking at our dog and saying, "Good girl," then sharing his snacks with her, showing what we hope is kindness. Matan has been a human for 16 months, and he is just now becoming a person. We are created as humans, but we become people. We're created as humans, but we become people because that definition of what it means to be human is so minimalistic that we have the incredible freedom to choose who we are going to be. It isn't all predetermined. We are left wonderfully unencumbered and unrestrained by our humanness, left with the autonomy and power to choose who we are and who we will be. We are, of course, products of our experiences. Some or even most of what shapes us comes from outside of our control, and yet we have choice in how we respond to it, how we carry it with us, how we incorporate our experiences into the person we are choosing to be. There's a story that Rabbi Akiva, one of our great rabbis of the first century, was walking home one evening. Rabbi Akiva was so deep in his meditation, so captivated by the text he was studying, that he missed the turn to take him home. He kept walking, unaware of his mistake, until he found himself standing before the front gate of a Roman fortress. There he was, face to face with the enemy. Before Rabbi Akiva could turn around and head the other way, the voice of one of the guards echoed down to him from the top of the gate, "Who are you? Why are you here?" Startled by the booming voice, Rabbi Akiva stammered, "What?" The voice of the guard again called down to him, "Who are you? Why are you here?" This time Rabbi Akiva was more collected. He looked up to the guard and asked, "How much are you paid to ask these questions?" 2 drachma per week, said the guard. "I'll pay you twice that amount," Rabbi Akiva told him, "if you'll stand outside my home and ask me those 2 questions every morning." Who we are and why we are here are not a given. The fact that we are humans isn't a sufficient enough understanding of self to answer these questions. Who are you and why are you here? We're beginning a new year, each of us standing at this natural juncture between past and future, where we begin our cheshbon hanefesh, the accounting of our soul. We look at who we have been and then make choices about who we can be in 5784. As we take stock, let's ask ourselves, maybe even aloud in the mirror, as silly as it may feel, who are you? Why are you here? Who are we? Why are we here? We are humans, created in the image of God with a capacity for goodness inherent in our souls. We stand on the foundation of the Adamah, the earth from which we were formed, with the privilege to choose who we are. We are created as humans. We choose to become people. Each of us in every season of our life has a choice about who we are in this moment and about who we will become. As humans, we have a full capacity to choose, and the hope is that we choose goodness and kindness, compassion and empathy, that we choose to be the people who care for our neighbors and our community, people who care for our environment and our planet. The hope is that we choose to be the kind of person that we want to believe, Margaret Mead described. In 5784, may we have the strength to choose to be the people that help a broken femur heal. Shana Tova.